Hello, and welcome to another version of Digital Sunday School. I'm here in my office. I've got my coffee. Makes for a good day. It's a beautiful day outside. Finally, maybe we're going to get some good weather around here. But today, I'd like everybody to take your Bibles and turn to Numbers chapter 16. Numbers 16. Beginning of verse 1, it says, Now Korah the son of Izhar, the son of Kohath, the son of Levi, and Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, and On the son of Peleth, the sons of Reuben, took men. And they rose up before Moses with certain of the children of Israel, 250 princes of the assembly, famous in the congregation, men of renown. And they gathered themselves together against Moses and against Aaron, and said unto them, Ye take too much upon you, seeing all the congregation are holy, every one of them, and the Lord is among them. Wherefore then lift ye up yourselves above the congregation of the Lord. And when Moses heard it, he fell upon his face. There is a story, and whether it's true, whether it's not, no one will know except for history. It's no one that knows. The Lord knows. But there's a story about a man who was sitting around with some colleagues. They were contractors, and they were talking about the city of New York, and they were talking specifically about Manhattan, and how that Manhattan was beginning to sink into the ocean because of all of the new construction going on there. It was getting too heavy. It was beginning to sink. And so the one guy had an idea to chop it in half, take the one half out, turn it around, and bring it back and put it in the other way. So the heavy side was inward and not outward to keep it from sinking. Well, legend has it that he got a whole bunch of people to volunteer to come and help. And on the day that it was, there was a huge gathering of men of labor there with saws and tools and all sorts of things ready to, you got it, saw Manhattan in half and have it towed out and brought back and then restructured in. Well, the man that did the hoax never showed up. And all of those men that showed up looked like morons. And we laugh at this. It's a funny story because we think, how could someone fall for something so stupid? But the truth is, if we're not careful, we can be guilty of the same thing. The story here we have of Korah. And Korah here is a man, he's of the tribe of Levi. They've got certain duties that they have to do for the tabernacle. They've been given to them. And but they're not the priests. They're not where Aaron is. Aaron, of course, is the high priest. Moses, obviously, is the leader at this time. And he's the one that God talks to on a regular basis. And they stand up before Moses. He gets men of renown, and I think that's important. We'll get to that here in a bit. But men of renown, men that would be looked at in society as people who knew things, they'd even maybe considered godly men, to get together, and they all stand up against Moses and basically accuse Moses and Aaron of trying to lord themselves over the people when God could just talk to all of them because they're all holy. And they've proven that several times throughout this time in the wilderness that they all follow the Lord wholly. And in case you couldn't catch that through the screen, that was sarcasm. So he gets up, and of course Moses here is falling on his face, and he's not falling on his face before them, but before the Lord, because he understands what's about to take place, and it's dangerous. It's going to be danger. The Lord is going to show up because Moses knows and Aaron knows that they're not doing anything that God hasn't already told them to do. And so there's danger coming. And that's what I want to look at today is dangers of listening to the wrong person. Sometimes we feel like everyone is shouting at us. Everyone's trying to get our attention, especially as a teenager. You're making some choices and making some decisions now that's going to affect you the rest of your life. And it seems like everybody's trying to tell you exactly how to do it. Where you should go and where you should be and how you should get there and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying that's bad. Godly counsel is a good thing. But sometimes we just feel like we're getting pulled in all different directions. And that doesn't change as you get older. People play a huge part in our lives from the time we're born to the time we die. And we have a lot of people trying to throw us information. We've got parents, we've got teachers, we've got preachers, we've got friends, we've got the media, we've got experts, and I put that in quotes because not all of the experts are really experts. Again, remember, Korah got men of renown, the men that they would have looked up to, men that would have been intelligent, men that would have been maybe even godly or spiritual to help him with what he was doing. We have a lot of voices vying for our attention, trying to get us to listen to what they have to say. And sometimes it gets confusing. Who do we listen to? Who should we be paying attention to? How do we know what's truth? How do we know what's not truth? Well, that is an easy and a hard question. It's easy in that if what they're telling you contradicts the Bible or God's word, it's a no. You don't do that. It can be hard though, because what if there's no book, chapter, or verse to go along with it? It can also be difficult because it's hard to swim upstream. And if it feels like the whole world is doing it and you're not doing it, that's a hard situation. And when the Bible doesn't necessarily say, thou shalt not whatever, there's no scripture that you're going to look at that says, thou shalt go to this college, thou shalt not go to that college. You have to look for principles. Or you have to listen to the right voice. And the right voice is God. The problem sometimes comes is we don't really listen for his voice. The rest of the world is shouting at us, trying to get us to pay attention. It's kind of like if you've ever been to a market or something like that, like say the mall, when there's got those vendors in the middle and they come out there and they're trying to get your attention and they want you to pay attention to them and they may even come up to you and try to get you to come over to their booth or whatever. And, I've learned to just not make eye contact with what I try to do, or just to pretend like I'm talking to my wife, and so that maybe they won't bother me. And if they do say something, just pretend to didn't hear them. But the world is like that. They try to get our attention somehow. God doesn't yell at us. God doesn't throw things at us. God's voice is a still small voice. We know that from Elijah. Elijah had some great things happen around him. He had an earthquake, he had a fire, he had a strong wind. And every time the Bible said, but God was not in it. But then he heard a still small voice. And can I tell you, amongst all of the loudness, because Elijah was paying attention, Elijah heard it. And he understood where it came from. And so we have to get used to tuning ourselves, turning our hearts and turning our minds to hear from the Lord. That's how we can make the right decision. But there's dangers of listening to the wrong person. Look at Korah here. We're going to go ahead and pick up in verse 29. Let's see, let me get there. It says, if these men, of course, Moses has told them, Korah, you and your men, you come back on this day and we'll let God decide who is who, who's in charge and who's not. He says, if these men die the common death of all men, or if they be visited after the visitation of all men, then the Lord hath not sent me. What he's saying is, if these people die of a natural cause, then God's not sent me. But if the Lord make a new thing, and the earth open her mouth and swallow them up, with all that appertain unto them, and they go down quick into the pit, then ye shall understand that these men have provoked the Lord. And it came to pass, as he had made an end of speaking all these words, that the ground clave asunder that was under them, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed them up, and their houses, and all the men that appertained unto Korah, and all their goods. They and all that appertained to them went down alive into the pit, and the earth closed upon them, and they perished from among the congregation. And all Israel that were round about them fled at the cry of them, for they said, lest the earth swallow us up also. And there came out fire from the Lord, and consumed the 250 men that offered incense. So basically, Moses gets in there and he says, listen, if these men die of a natural death, then God didn't send me. But if something new should happen, let's say like the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them, and I don't know, I guess that God probably gave Moses these words to say, I would assume. But if not, Moses had a very good imagination about how these men should be handled. But the earth should swallow them whole and they go down alive into the pit. Then you'll know that I'm with God. And immediately it happened. And not only that, but fire fell from heaven and consumed all the other people that were standing up against Moses. And so we see that that's very dangerous. The Lord just swallowed them up. Literally, the earth did. And you would think that this would have been enough to convince people that, hey, okay, we're wrong. Moses is our leader. Korah was not the guy to listen to. But if we look a little bit farther, we see that the people the very next day, these same people that saw them be swallowed up, these same people that saw the fire come down from heaven, they all got together and murmured against Moses and said, they have killed the people of the Lord. Really? Because it looks to me, I've never seen a man who'd been able to make the earth swallow people up, but they were convinced. They were still listening to the wrong voice. And you say, these people were dumb. How can anyone fall for something so stupid? I mean, hasn't it been proven over and over again that Moses was the man of God? I mean, look at all the miracles he's done. Look how he got them out of Egypt. Look how he's led them. Look how he's been patient with them when most of us would have just wiped our hands with them. But yet they kept falling for it, and they kept murmuring against the Lord. They kept murmuring against Moses and murmuring against the Lord. Now they've stood up against him, and they've seen the very act of God and how he swallowed them up into the earth, and fire came down from heaven. You would think surely now they would understand. Surely now they would get it, that Moses is the man of God. But yet the very next day, the congregation of the Lord murmured against Moses to the point where God said, Moses, stand aside. I'm going to destroy all of them and start over with you. And of course, Moses interceded for the people, and that didn't happen. But we think, man, what stupidity, over and over and over and over again. But you know, the same thing happens to us in our world. Here's a big picture one. You know, evolution has been proven wrong, changed, discredited, so forth, so on, by scientists, by normal people, all over the place. And yet people still believe in it all the time. It's to the point that even though it can't be proven, and even though it contradicts several scientific laws, which for you that don't know, scientific laws are things that have been tested to the point where they cannot be disproven, and so they are law. Gravity is a scientific law. But yet they treat it like it is a scientific law. And yet there's no proof. There's no evidence. It's not happening in our world today. But yet people keep falling for it over and over and over. You say, well, that's kind of big. Okay, well, let's go simpler. Drugs, smoking, alcohol. All of them have been proven to ruin your health, to ruin your lives, to ruin relationships. They cause cancer. They cause bad lungs. People die from them every day by drunk drivers and alcohol poisoning, drugs, overdosing, the way that is an addiction. And now in our society, we're trying to legalize marijuana. It's a drug. And in my lifetime, when I was a teenager, marijuana was a no-no because it was the gateway to doing harder drugs. But now we're trying to legalize it because they've bought into a lie. And people are falling for it all the time. And at your age, you can get into a big trouble with doing this, especially alcohol and drugs. They're illegal. It'll ruin your life. But yet young people start doing these every single day. I know kids that I've known that have been in our church that have sat and heard and even some of them in their own homes witnessed the devastation of these things, but yet they say, we'll never do it, we'll never do it, we'll never do it. We see it, we understand it, and yet they do it. They're listening to the wrong voice. And so many other examples could be given. And there's been so many that have been taught and preached. If you go to youth camp, there's several you're going to, immorality. It's taught every time. But yet young people are ignoring it because the world around them is saying, it's okay. It's fine. It won't hurt you. It can't happen to you. And the truth is, it's a lie. It's nothing but a lie. And if you keep listening to the wrong voice, not just in these areas, but in all sorts of areas, you're going to wake up one day and realize you're where you don't want to be. And there will be consequences. Probably not the earth opening its mouth and swallowing you whole, but they'll still be great. Ruined lives, ruined relationships. Standing before God one day and realizing you wasted your life that He gave you. Listen, not every consequence will be as detrimental as lung cancer from years of smoking. But if you start down this path listening to the wrong voices, I guarantee you will look back at your life and see heartaches and difficulties that could have been avoided had you just followed the Lord. Had you just done what He told you to do. Simple conclusion today, simple question. Who are you listening to? It's going to make all the difference. Hope everyone has a great day. We'll see you soon.